consider going into teaching in Germany and you're about to enroll in the university course Lehramt and you are an immigrant student like I am, definitely stick around because I am going to be examining the notion of Lehramt in more detail in this episode. Let's do this! Всем привет! Hallo zusammen! Hi guys! Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Anastasia and I make videos to share my experiences with you guys. So if you're interested in my migration and integration story, if you're interested in my language learning journey and also my academic journey, definitely go and check out my videos. In the past 3 videos, I was trying to break down the university course Lehramt into more digestible units for you guys. I was talking about my first major, I was talking about my second major, I was talking about a third component, pedagogy, and I thought I'd put it all together in today's episode, and I'm also going to be talking about the prereqs. So what do you have to gain, how many ECTS points, how many modules, what is the Zulassungsarbeit for. So everything you need to have done in order to be admitted to the first state exam, das erste Staatsexamen. Alright guys, let's dive into today's episode. What does it take to successfully complete a Lehramt degree? And I'm not talking about hard work here, I'm not talking about determination, I'm not talking about perseverance, because this goes without saying. If you enroll in this university course, then you really need to be intrinsically motivated, because not only does it last extraordinarily long, it's also quite comprehensive, so it encompasses so much that you really need to stay focused and to stay motivated. What I am talking about here are some hands-on tips and tricks how to prepare for the state exam and how to pass it successfully. I hope to shed some light on this degree. Let's go! Just a quick disclaimer guys, this video is not about the application process, nor is it about the admission requirements. Technically speaking, I should be classified as an international student because I am a migrant. But I am not, because I got German citizenship, which I'm talking about in my second video, so if you're interested, go and check it out. When I applied to LMU to enroll in the Lehramt university course, I was considered as a German applicant. I had to get a copy of my A-levels, das Abitur, and that's about it, and also fill out a form online. Apart from that, I did not have to do anything out of the ordinary. What are the prerequisites in order to get to be eligible to take the first state exam? Well, let me break it down for you guys. Number 1, you've got your 2 subjects. You acquire subject knowledge and also the teaching methods, which is called didactics, right? In each of your subjects, you have to gain 105 ECTS points. You also have to gain 36 ECTS points in your pedagogical component, so in EWS or in EVS. Then you also have to complete 3 placements in the school type you've gone for. So if you are doing Mittelschule, then you will do 3 placements in a Mittelschule or Realschule or Gymnasium. And then also you've got an internship which you are doing in a different context. You also have to do a stay abroad. The last bit of a Lehramtsstudium is the so-called Zulassungsarbeit, and the title already gives it away. Zulassung, so is admission, right? So to get admitted to the first state exam. Zulassungsarbeit can be situated in your first subject, in your second subject, or in pedagogy, so in the Erziehungswissenschaften, right? As you know, and I was talking about it in the video on my bachelor's thesis, so check it out if you're interested. My Zulassungsarbeit is situated in the Erziehungswissenschaften, where I'm comparing the parental styles, the educational styles in the preschool institutions in Russia as opposed to Germany. You can see the scope of this term paper equals a bachelor's thesis, so it's a big one, right? In terms of the subjects combination, especially if you are an immigrant student like I am, I'd highly recommend studying a subject first you are interested in and second you are good at. Languages is quite common for immigrant students to study. So for example, I know some folks who've studied English and Spanish, English and Italian, English and Russian, English and Czech. What I'm saying is those people are a native speaker of Spanish, for example, or a native speaker of Italian. So they are quite confident in that subject, okay? So in my case, it's obviously Russian. So as you can see, I do not have access to a board today. Let's try and improvise and be creative. So let me show you around a bit in terms of the LMU website and how can you navigate best through this, as I call, ocean of information without drowning. In terms of the course duration, if you have just enrolled in this program, in this course, do not expect to graduate anytime soon. You have to plan at least 4 years, which is like 8 semesters, right? But normally, speaking from experience, it takes you 5 years at minimum, because you don't only have all those modules to complete, but also some extra stuff like placements, internship, stay abroad, especially if you have caring responsibilities, if you have childcare responsibilities, if you are working part-time, right? This will of course extend your studying time. I think it's safe to say that a Lehramtsstudium equals a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in some respects, you know, because here in Munich, after Lehramtsstudium, you actually are eligible to apply for a PhD, 5 years at least, which is mind-blowing, I know, in comparison to the same university course, differently structured, obviously, in Russia or in the UK, where you would normally do your bachelor's degree and then do a PGCE, postgraduate certificate of education, which takes you 1 year. Bad news is, in Germany, everything takes longer. You know what really upsets me? I would have done much better in my first state exam if I'd known some fundamentals. Oh, hi, hello! So let's move on to the second part of this video, in which I am going to provide you with some tips and tricks to how to successfully prepare for the first state exam and also to pass it. My first 2 pieces of advice are going to be based on this excellent book by Stephen Covey, which I try to consult quite regularly. So the first one is about being proactive and the second one is about beginning with the end in mind, okay? But before I get into it, let me remind you of my last video in which I was talking about the constructivist approach to pedagogy, you know, which is rather favored in today's classroom. This is about a notion that the students are active participants in acquiring their knowledge. It is not us teachers who are going to make sure that the knowledge somehow enters their heads, but it's the students themselves who actively construct their knowledge. Based on this notion, let's move on to my first piece of advice. Be proactive. This means take charge, take ownership of your degree. Remember, this is your degree. What I would advise you to do after each lecture is to take some time, actually to schedule some time. I don't know, guys, if you're using a digital planner or a physical planner. I use both. So this is my physical planner, and I also use Google Calendar on a daily basis. But do schedule some time to revise what you've heard about in a lecture. I deliberately avoid the term what you've learned about, because this is not a learning. A learning process takes place when, after you've been to a lecture, you sit down, you open your notes, you revise notes, and then you try to make connections. I definitely would advise you to proceed like this on a weekly basis. The second piece of advice I'm going to be sharing is begin with the end in mind. What do I mean by that? Well, what's the end goal when being enrolled in a Lehramt studium? Is to successfully pass the first state exam, right? Simply put, you've got the past exam papers which have been accumulated and are accessible on the website called MZL, so Münchner Zentrum für Lehrerbildung. I'll show you in a second what it looks like and where you can find this compilation of those exam papers. Example, when it comes to English, okay, you have literature, you have linguistics, so inevitable parts of a Staatsexamensaufgabe, right? You've got didactic, you've got writing, okay, so writing skills, and you've got oral skills. So 5 components of each Examensaufgabe, be it English, be it Russian. What I really advise you to do is to start early. Do take a look at least one of those exam papers and try to familiarize yourselves with the format of the task, with the scope of the task. What are you required to do? And then, of course, to keep record of what you've done already. In my case, I do have still a folder for each of my subjects and also for each of the components. Separate folder for literature, separate folder for linguistics, separate folder for pedagogy, separate folder for educational psychology, separate folder for school education, separate folder for general psychology, separate folder for didactics, and so on and so forth. Take small incremental steps towards your end goal. Working towards the end goal can be immensely motivating and enhance your progress immensely, because you've been keeping record of what you can and can't. So tracking your progress is really important. Piece of advice number 3 is about organizing information. In the course of a Lehramt studium, you're going to be bombarded with tons of information. You need to organize it effectively so that it enters your long-term memory. So, research says that the human mind has got certain limitations. There is a certain cognitive limit, certain amount of information we can take in. First of all, make sure that you don't leave your preparation to the last minute, because anatomically it is not possible to take in so much information at once. Break it down constantly and consistently. Okay, let's stick with the literature example. In the literature section, you do have several epochs. how on earth can you remember and memorize all those authors from the 19th century? Well, try to organize this information. So you've got the 19th century literature or Victorian literature as an overarching topic. And then you've got certain authors. So Jane Austen, Charlotte Bronte, Charles Dickens, and so on and so forth. You also have some themes that are quite recurrent, throughout those realist novels. So you've got topics, you've got themes, you've got certain style. Speaking of narratology, you would not have a stream of consciousness in the 19th century novels, but you would have the third-person narrator who is not only documenting what's happening around, but also to some extent imposes their opinion on the reader. So arrange and organize your knowledge, because it's easy to process, it's easy to store, it's easy to retrieve. You are doing yourselves a favor. Speaking of the limitations of a human mind, and I did touch upon this model by Atkinson and Schifrin in my last video. So remember guys, you've got this sensory register, you've got the initial processing, then you've got the working memory or short-term memory, and then you've got the long-term memory. Our aim is to make sure that the necessary information enters this grey area termed long-term memory. And I've shared with you some bits and pieces how to successfully do it, for example by summing up what you've just read, by writing your own summary, so not only verbally but also in the written form, also to try and connect information. Speaking of the 19th century British novel, for example, you can connect all those authors, so all those novelists, because there is an underlying theme that they share, or an overarching theme that they share, or the style, the writing style is similar. Definitely make connections, also known in research as elaboration. Elaboration is based on the concept of levels of processing, deep semantic processing of information. Let me give you an example of how on earth could I memorize the date of death of Alexander Sergeyevich Pushkin. Well, 1837 happens also to be the date when Queen Victoria became Queen Victoria, so she got on the English throne. And I was like, oh wow, I can make connections not only within the British Empire but also cross-culturally. Okay, so 1837, Pushkin dies, 1837, Victoria becomes Queen of England. The amount of information you guys have to handle is insane, and if you don't start early, you'll definitely get overwhelmed. The motivation will sharply decrease and you will end up being on the verge of giving up. Alright guys, that's it from me for today. I hope it's been informative, I hope it's been helpful. If you liked what you saw, please make sure to give the thumbs up to let me know that you like this content, and also consider subscribing to my channel because it really supports my channel. I will see you all next week. Stay healthy, stay safe. Всем пока! Tschüss!